Commander Zethka adjusted his reptilian form in the command chair, watching the holographic display show a small blue-green world spinning peacefully in space. Earth. Such a tiny planet, yet it had caused more chaos in the Galactic Council than any other world in recorded history. "Status report," he hissed through razor-sharp teeth. "All ships in position, Commander," replied his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vexry. 67 destroyers, 12 battle cruisers, and the flagship, Absolute Justice. The human settlement on Kepler 442b is completely surrounded. Zethka's golden eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Finally, after 3 years of political maneuvering and secret preparations, they would teach these upstart humans their place in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had grown too soft, too tolerant of human expansion. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Counselor Veltar on the homeworld." On screen, the hologram flickered to life, showing an elderly Zephyrian with pale blue skin and wise, ancient eyes. Counselor Veltar had served on the Galactic Council for over 2 centuries, and his expression now carried a weight that made even Commander Zethka pause. "Commander Zethka," Veltar's voice carried across the void, heavy with authority and something else. "Fear? You are ordered to stand down immediately and return to base." "I'm afraid I cannot comply, Counselor," Zethka replied, his tail swishing with agitation. "The human colony on Kepler 442b has been mining our sacred crystals. Without permission, they must be stopped. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. These humans think they can take whatever they want from our galaxy. Today they learn otherwise." Veltar's image leaned forward, his eyes wide with desperation. "Commander, listen to me very carefully. That isn't just any human colony. Intelligence reports confirm there are over 300 human children on that world." 300! The bridge fell silent. Even the steady hum of the ship's engine seemed to quiet. "So?" Zethka finally asked, though his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. "The first rule of galactic interaction, Commander. The one law that supersedes all others. The one that has kept peace in this galaxy for the past 50 years. Veltar's voice became a whisper. "Never attack human children." But the transmission was already cutting out. Zethka had heard enough. "Begin the attack," he commanded, and in that moment, he sealed not just his own fate, but the fate of every ship in his fleet. Because what Commander Zethka didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 10 light-years away aboard the human research vessel Aurora, an emergency beacon had just activated, and when humans receive an emergency beacon from their children, they don't send diplomats. They send everything. Chapter 1, The Watcher's Doctor. Sarah Chen was having the worst day of her career, and considering she'd once accidentally created a micro-black hole in her laboratory, that was saying something. The emergency klaxon blared across the bridge of the Aurora as she sprinted from the quantum physics lab, her lab coat billowing behind her. Red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow, and the faces of her crewmates reflected the same mixture of confusion and growing dread that she felt in her chest. "Report!" she called out as she burst onto the bridge. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood at the central command console, his weathered face grim as he studied the holographic displays floating around him. At 62, Rodriguez had served in 3 different wars and countless peacekeeping missions, but Sarah had never seen him look quite this serious. "Emergency beacon from New Geneva colony on Kepler 442b, he said, without looking away from the display. "Full distress signal activated 12 minutes ago." Sarah felt her stomach drop. New Geneva wasn't just any colony. It was their first major family settlement. Thousands of people lived there, including hundreds of children who had been born among the stars, the first generation of true spaceborne humans. "What kind of emergency?" she asked, though part of her already knew she wouldn't like the answer. "Unknown fleet of alien vessels," replied Lieutenant Commander Jessica Park, the ship's tactical officer. Her fingers danced across holographic controls as she brought up the long-range sensor data. "Preliminary scans show at least 70 ships of various sizes, all surrounding the planet. 70 ships? Sarah's voice cracked slightly. The Aurora was a research vessel, not a warship. They had exactly zero chance against that kind of force. Captain Rodriguez finally turned to face her, and she saw something in his dark eyes that made her blood run cold. Not fear. Humans had learned to push past fear long ago. This was something much more dangerous. Fury. Dr. Chen, he said, in a voice that could cut steel. I need you to do something for me. I need you to send a message to Earth Command. Use the quantum entanglement communicator. Sarah blinked. The quantum communicator was only used for the most critical emergencies. It allowed instant communication across any distance, but it consumed enormous amounts of energy and could only be used a few times before burning out. What should the message say? Rodriguez walked over to the communication station and began typing on the holographic keyboard. As he typed, his words appeared on the main screen for everyone to see. Priority Alpha Emergency. Classification: Children at Risk. Location: Kepler 442b, New Geneva Colony. Situation: Hostile alien fleet, 70+. Vessels, estimated time to contact, 6 hours. Request: immediate military response. Confirm protocol: 7 is now active. Sarah read the message twice before its full meaning sank in. Captain. Protocol 7, are you sure? 300. And 17 children, Dr. Chen, Rodriguez replied quietly. Ages ranging from 6 months to 17 years. They're not just colonists. They're our children. The first humans born among the stars. He pressed the send button. Across the galaxy, on Earth, the message would be received in exactly 0.0 seconds thanks to quantum entanglement. And when it was received, every alarm in Human Space Command would begin screaming, because Protocol 7 wasn't just a call for help. It was a declaration of war. Ma'am, Lieutenant Park called out from her station. I'm picking up another signal. This one's from the alien fleet. Put it through. The bridge filled with the sound of an alien voice, translated automatically by their universal communicator. The voice was cold, reptilian, filled with arrogance and authority. Attention, human vessel. You are trespassing in sovereign reptilian empire space. You have 30 minutes to surrender or be destroyed. Your colony on the planet below has already been subdued. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Subdued, Rodriguez repeated, his voice deadly quiet. They said subdued. Captain, Dr. Chen said carefully. What exactly happens when Protocol 7 is activated? Marcus Rodriguez turned to look at her, and for the first time since she'd known him, he smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Dr. Chen, what do you know about human history? I'm a physicist, not a historian. Throughout our history, we've fought wars for many reasons. Territory, resources, ideology, religion. But there's one thing that has always been true about humans, no matter which culture or time period you study. He walked over to the main viewing screen, which showed the distant star system where New Geneva Colony sat under siege. We are absolutely, uncompromisingly, insanely protective of our children. And when someone threatens our children, he paused, the smile growing wider and more dangerous. Well, let's just say that the galaxy is about to learn why humans were once called the most terrifying species in the known universe. As if summoned by his words, new alarms began sounding. But these weren't emergency alarms. These were incoming ship alerts. Captain, Lieutenant Park called out, her voice filled with excitement and disbelief. I'm reading massive hyperspace signatures. Ships are jumping in from everywhere. The main screen shifted to show the space around them. And Sarah, Chen's jaw dropped. Ships were materializing out of hyperspace in every direction, not just military vessels, but civilian ships that had been hastily converted. Cargo haulers bristling with jury-rigged weapons. Mining ships with their industrial lasers refocused as cutting beams. Even luxury yachts that had somehow acquired military-grade shields. My God, she whispered. How many? Still counting, ma'am, Park replied, her fingers flying over her controls. 200, 400, 800? Captain, I've never seen anything like this. It's like every human ship within 50 light years just dropped everything and came running. Rodriguez nodded grimly. That's exactly what happened, Lieutenant. When you threaten human children, you don't just face the military. You face all of us. A new voice crackled over the communication system, transmitted from the growing fleet around them. This is Admiral Sarah Thompson, commanding the UES Retribution. All vessels, this is now a military operation under Protocol 7 authority. Our mission is simple. Secure the safety of every human child on New Geneva Colony. Rules of engagement are as follows. Any alien vessel that refuses to withdraw will be considered hostile. Any alien vessel that is fired upon the colony will be destroyed. Any alien vessel that has harmed a human child. The Admiral's voice became ice cold. The void between stars held no mercy tonight. Any alien vessel that has harmed a human child will find out why we used to be the apex predators on our homeworld. Sarah looked around the bridge at her crewmates. Every face showed the same expression. Grim, determination mixed with something primal and ancient. She was starting to understand why the galaxy had once feared humanity, and she was beginning to suspect that they were about to remember why. Captain, she said quietly, I think I understand now. This isn't really about the colony, is it? No, Dr. Chen. This is about sending a message. Rodriguez turned back to the tactical display, where the red dots representing the alien fleet still surrounded the planet. We're about to remind the galaxy of something very important, which is, his smile became predatorial. Human children are off limits, always. Le Seymour, Chapter 2. The Rule High Admiral Kreshta of the Galactic Council Defense Force stood on the observation deck of the massive space station, Unity, watching the stars and trying not to think about what was coming. As a Velkarian, Kreshta stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that shimmered between blue and silver depending on the light. Her species had been spacefaring for over 3,000 years, and in all that time she had never seen the galaxy so close to complete chaos. Admiral, came a voice behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Korvac, representative of the Zephyrian Council. His pale blue skin looked almost gray with worry, and his usually perfectly groomed appearance was disheveled. Ambassador, she acknowledged with a slight bow. I take it the emergency session didn't go well? It was a disaster, Korvac replied, moving to stand beside her at the large viewport. 17 different species are demanding immediate military action against the humans. The Reptilian Empire is claiming this is an act of war against their sovereign territory, and the humans haven't responded to any diplomatic channels. Their ambassador walked out of the session when the Reptilian representative accused them of illegal expansion. Kreshta sighed, a sound like wind through metal chimes. Show me the tactical situation. Korvac activated his portable holographic projector, and the space before them filled with a 3-dimensional map of the Kepler 442 system. Red dots showed the reptilian fleet surrounding the planet, while blue dots represented the rapidly growing human force. Current human fleet strength? She asked. Over 2,000 vessels and growing by the hour, Korvac replied, his voice heavy with disbelief. Everything from military dreadnoughts to converted civilian ships. Intelligence suggests they're not just coming from nearby systems. Some of these ships traveled over 100 light years to get here. 2,000 ships for one small colony? Admiral, it's not just any colony. Our intelligence reports indicate there are over 300 human children on that world. Kreshta went very still. Children? Yes. The first major human family colony outside their home system. By the ancient ones, she whispered. Do you realize what this means? Korvac looked confused. I'm afraid I don't follow. Admiral Kreshta turned to face him fully, her expression grave. Ambassador, how old are you? I'm 137 years old, Admiral. Why? You're too young to remember. But I'm 412 years old. I was alive when humans first joined the Galactic Council. She turned back to the holographic display, studying the positioning of the human fleet. I was there when we established the accords that govern interaction with their species. I've read the historical records, Admiral. Humans were considered a dangerous species when they first achieved faster-than-light travel. There were incidents. Incidents, Kreshta repeated with a bitter laugh. Ambassador, in their first 50 years of space travel, humans fought 14 separate wars against various alien species. They won 13 of them. The historical records mention their tactical superiority and adaptability, yes. The historical records don't mention everything, Ambassador. She manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up historical battle footage from 75 years ago. Have you ever seen humans fight? The hologram showed a space battle between human ships and what appeared to be a massive alien fleet. The alien ships were larger, more numerous, and seemingly better armed. But as they watched, the human ships began moving in patterns that seemed almost impossible, diving through enemy formations, using their own damaged vessels as weapons, employing tactics that bordered on suicidal. They don't fight like other species, Kreshta continued. Most civilized species conduct warfare with rules, with honor, with consideration for casualties and resource management. Humans fight like they're trying to prove something to the universe itself. The battle footage showed a human ship, clearly damaged and venting atmosphere, deliberately ramming into an alien dreadnought 3 times its size. The explosion took out both vessels and 5 nearby enemy ships. But that was decades ago, Korvac protested. Humans have been peaceful members of the galactic community for 53 years, Kreshta interrupted. Do you know why? The peace of Proxima Centauri established clear boundaries for human expansion and— No, Ambassador, that's not why. She closed the historical footage and brought up a different document. The real reason humans have been peaceful is because of one specific clause in their membership agreement. The first rule of galactic interaction. The holographic display showed a single line of text, translated into hundreds of alien languages. No member species of the Galactic Council shall engage in hostile actions against human civilian populations, particularly human children, under any circumstances. I don't understand the significance, Korvac admitted. During the treaty negotiations, the human ambassador explained something to us. He said that humans have evolved as a species that is extremely protective of their young. He said that threatening human children doesn't just anger individual humans, it triggers something he called species-level protective response. Which means what, exactly? Admiral Kreshta manipulated the display to show current human fleet movements. Ships were still arriving in the Kepler 442 system, but more concerning were the movements throughout human space. Entire fleets were mobilizing, civilian populations were evacuating non-essential worlds, and massive shipyards had gone into emergency production mode. It means, Ambassador, that Commander Zethka didn't just attack a human colony. He declared war on the entire human species. The holographic display chimed, indicating an incoming priority message. Kreshta accepted the transmission and the image of Grand Counselor Veltar appeared before them. Admiral Kreshta, Veltar said without preamble, I need you to get to the Kepler 442 system immediately. Sir, with respect, I have exactly 12 ships under my command. The humans currently have over 2,000 vessels in that system. I'm not sending you there to fight them, Admiral. I'm sending you there to witness. Witness what? Veltar's ancient eyes held a sadness that seemed to span centuries. The end of the reptilian empire, Admiral, and possibly the beginning of a new age in galactic politics. Before Kreshta could respond, another alarm began sounding throughout the station. The tactical officer on duty called out from the command center. Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human fleets are mobilizing everywhere. It's not just the Kepler system, they're moving on every reptilian empire outpost simultaneously. How many ships? She asked, though she dreaded the answer. Current estimates suggest over 50,000 vessels, ma'am, and the number is climbing every hour. Ambassador Korvac stared at the display in shock. 50,000 ships? For one colony? No, Ambassador, Admiral Kreshta replied, finally understanding the full scope of what was happening. For 300 children. She activated her communicator to address her small fleet. All vessels prepare for immediate departure to the Kepler 442 system. We have a war to stop. Admiral, Korvac called out as she headed for the door. What if we can't stop it? She paused at the threshold, considering the question. Then we'll witness the birth of the first human Galactic Empire ambassador, and we'll hope they remember that we tried to prevent this from happening. As she left for her ship, Admiral Kreshta couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The galaxy was about to remember why humans had once been feared throughout the stars, and this time, they had brought friends. Chapter 3. The Storm Commander Zethka was beginning to suspect he had made a mistake. The first sign had been when his long-range sensors detected ships jumping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. A few ships weren't unusual. Human merchants were always traveling the star lanes. But when the count reached 100 ships, then 500, then 1,000, he began to understand that this wasn't normal trade traffic. "Sir," Lieutenant Vexry reported from the sensor station, "I'm reading 2,417 human vessels now in system, and more are arriving every few minutes." 2,000? Zethka's scaled hand gripped the armrest of his command chair. "For one small colony? Sir, perhaps we should reconsider—" "No!" Zethka roared, his tail lashing with agitation. "We came here to teach these humans their place in the galaxy, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Are the ground forces ready?" "Yes, sir. 4,000 reptilian marines have secured the main colony sites. The humans offered no resistance. That should have been the second warning sign. Humans always resisted. Always. It was as fundamental to their nature as breathing. But Commander Zethka was too focused on his tactical displays to notice the anomaly. The growing human fleet was maintaining distance, not approaching within weapons range. They seemed to be awaiting. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human female in a military uniform. She appeared to be in her 50s, with steel-gray hair, and eyes that seemed to look right through him. Her uniform bore insignia he didn't recognize, but the bearing was unmistakably that of a senior commander. "I am Admiral Sarah Thompson of the United Earth Space Force," she said in a voice that carried absolute authority. "You are Commander Zethka of the Reptilian Empire vessel, Absolute Justice." "I am," Zethka replied, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. "And you are trespassing in reptilian space." "Actually, Commander, you're wrong about that." Admiral Thompson's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes became dangerous. "This system was never claimed by the Reptilian Empire, but that's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here, Admiral?" "I'm here to give you one chance to avoid the complete destruction of your fleet." Zethka's officers exchanged glances around the bridge. One chance? They were outnumbered by over 30 to 1. What could possibly— "You have exactly 10 minutes to withdraw all of your forces from this system, Commander, including your ground troops." "And if I refuse?" Admiral Thompson leaned forward slightly, and for the first time she smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. "Then you'll discover why the Galactic Council established the first rule, Commander, and why every species in the galaxy agreed to it." The transmission ended. "Sir," Lieutenant Vexry said quietly, "maybe we should—" "Absolutely not," Zethka snarled. "Signal the ground forces, begin the demonstration." "Sir." "Execute 10 of the human colonists. Make sure the fleet can see it." The bridge fell silent. Even among the Reptilian Empire's military, executing civilians was considered extreme. "Commander," Vexry said carefully, "are you certain that's wise? If there are children among the colonists—" "I said execute them. These humans need to learn that their expansion has consequences." The order was transmitted to the surface. 3 minutes later, the confirmation came back. 10 human colonists had been publicly executed in the main colony square. That was when everything changed. The human fleet, which had been maintaining a respectful distance, suddenly began moving. Not toward the planet, toward the reptilian fleet, and they weren't moving like any military formation Zethka had ever seen. They were moving like predators. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the human ships are—" They're not following standard attack patterns. On the display, Zethka could see what he meant. Instead of forming battle lines or organized assault formations, the human ships were spreading out in what looked like chaos. But as he watched, he began to realize it wasn't chaos at all. It was a hunting formation. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human admiral." "Put it through." Admiral Thompson's image reappeared, but this time, her expression had changed completely. The professional courtesy was gone, replaced by something ancient and terrible. "Commander Zethka," she said, and her voice now carried a tone that made Zethka's reptilian blood run cold. "You just made the worst mistake in your species' history. I have 67 ships, Admiral. You may outnumber me, but, Commander, you killed our people. That was bad enough. But our intelligence reports indicate that 3 of those colonists were children." Zethka felt a chill run down his spine. "Children are killed in wars, Admiral. It's unfortunate, but no, Commander. You don't understand." Admiral Thompson's eyes became distant, as if she were seeing something far beyond the view screen. "In our species' history, we've had many different cultures, many different belief systems, many different ways of life. But there's one thing that has been true of humans since we first began using tools. The human fleet was almost in weapons range now, and Zethka could see that his tactical officer was right. They weren't following any known military doctrine. They were moving like a pack of wolves surrounding prey. "We protect our children," Admiral Thompson continued. "It's not a choice, Commander. It's not a political decision or a military strategy. It's programmed into our DNA by millions of years of evolution. When you kill human children, you don't just commit an act of war." She leaned forward, and Zethka saw something in her eyes that made him understand, finally, why the galaxy had once feared humanity. "You trigger a species-wide imperative that overrides everything else. Our politics, our economics, our individual concerns. None of it matters when our children are threatened. Admiral, The communication phase of this encounter is now concluded, Commander." The transmission ended. A moment later, every alarm on the bridge began screaming at once. "Sir!" the tactical officer shouted over the noise. "The human fleet is opening fire!" But what Zethka saw on his displays defied everything he knew about space combat. The human ships weren't just firing weapons, they were using everything. Mining lasers, industrial cutters, even what appeared to be improvised projectile launchers firing chunks of metal at relativistic speeds. "Return fire," he ordered. His fleet's weapons were military grade, designed for ship-to-ship combat. They should have easily outclassed the improvised human weapons. But the humans weren't fighting like a military force. They were fighting like an angry mob with spaceships. "Sir, the Iron Fist is reporting critical damage," Lieutenant Vexry called out. "A human cargo hauler just rammed them." "Rammed them?" Zethka stared at the tactical display in disbelief. A human ship had actually crashed itself into one of his destroyers, destroying both vessels. "Who does that?" "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the fleet. The humans are using ramming attacks, suicide runs, coordinated swarm tactics. They're not fighting like any military force on record." That was when Zethka finally understood the true horror of his situation. These weren't just human military ships. These were civilian vessels crewed by ordinary humans who had dropped everything they were doing to come here when they learned that human children were in danger, and they were all willing to die to protect those children. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Kreshta of the Galactic Council Defense Force." "Put it through." The image of the tall, blue-skinned Velkarian admiral appeared on screen, and Zethka had never been so happy to see a council representative. "Admiral Kreshta, thank the stars you're here. I invoke my right to council protection under—" "Commander Zethka," Admiral Kreshta interrupted, her voice heavy with sadness. "I'm not here to protect you. I'm here to witness your destruction and to ensure that the galaxy learns from your mistake." "What? You attacked human children, Commander. There is no protection from that, no law, no treaty, no power in this galaxy can save you now." As if to emphasize her point, 3 more of his ships disappeared from the tactical display, overwhelmed by human vessels that seemed to come from every direction at once. "How many ships do they have?" he whispered. Current count is over 4,000, Commander, Admiral Kreshta replied. And more are arriving every hour. They've mobilized their entire civilian fleet. For one colony? For 300 children, Commander, and the principle that those children represent. On the tactical display, Zethka watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to care nothing for military doctrine, casualty ratios, or their own survival. They fought with a desperate fury that was beyond anything he had ever encountered. Sir, Lieutenant Vexry said quietly, perhaps we should surrender. Can we? Zethka asked Admiral Kreshta. The Council Admiral was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, Commander. In all our recorded history, no species has ever attacked human children and survived to tell about it. That was when Zethka realized the truth. This wasn't a battle or even a war. This was an extermination. And he had triggered it by breaking the one rule that should never ever be broken. As his flagship shuddered under enemy fire, Commander Zethka began to understand why the galaxy had been so afraid of humans and why they should still be. The battle for Kepler 442b lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. Admiral Sarah Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the tactical displays as the last reptilian ship, Commander Zethka's flagship, limped through space, its weapons offline and life support failing. Around her, the bridge crew worked with efficient precision, coordinating the rescue operations on the planet's surface and managing the logistics of the largest human fleet ever assembled. But despite their professionalism, she could see the same expression on every face. Grim satisfaction mixed with an ancient anger that hadn't been fully satisfied. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, all reptilian ground forces have been eliminated or captured. The colony is secure. Casualties? 13 colonists killed during the initial occupation, including, the officer's voice trailed off. Including? 3 children, ma'am, ages 8, 12, and 14. The bridge fell silent. Thompson closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of those deaths settle on her shoulders. 3 children who would never grow up, never see Earth, never have children of their own. When she opened her eyes, her expression had hardened into something that would have frightened anyone who didn't know her. Signal Commander Zethka's ship. I want to speak with him. Yes, ma'am. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the reptilian flagship's bridge. The ship had clearly taken massive damage. Emergency lighting cast everything in a hellish red glow and smoke drifted through the air. Commander Zethka sat slumped in his command chair, his scaled armor cracked and his golden eyes dim with defeat. Commander, Thompson said, her voice carrying across space. Admiral, Zethka replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I wish to surrender. Do you? My fleet is destroyed. My ground forces are dead. I have nothing left to fight with. Thompson studied the broken alien commander for a long moment. Commander, do you understand what you've done? I attacked a human colony. No, you killed human children. Zethka winced as if the words were physical blows. I didn't know they were children. That's not an excuse, Commander. That's the problem. She manipulated her console, bringing up a holographic display that both ships could see. It showed the current disposition of human forces throughout the galaxy. Do you see this, Commander? Zethka looked at the display, and his eyes widened with shock. The hologram showed human fleets moving throughout known space, converging on every reptilian empire outpost, mining facility, and military base. This is happening right now, Commander. Not just here, but everywhere. 64,000 human ships are currently engaged in simultaneous operations against reptilian empire forces across 17 star systems. 64,000? The number is still growing. When humans learn that someone has killed their children, they don't just respond locally, they respond everywhere. A new voice entered the conversation as Admiral Kreshta's ship joined the communication link. Admiral Thompson, the Galactic Council representative, said, "Surely this level of response is excessive." Thompson turned to look at the Velkarian Admiral's image. Admiral Kreshta, how many children do you have? What does that have to do with how many? 2 offspring, but if someone killed your 2 children, Admiral, what would you do? Kreshta was quiet for a long moment. I would hunt down the ones responsible and make them pay. Now imagine that instead of just you, every member of your species felt that same protective rage. Every parent, every grandparent, every adult who had ever cared for a child. And imagine that your species had the ships and weapons to act on that rage. Thompson gestured to the holographic display. That's what you're seeing, Admiral. That's what happens when you kill human children. But surely, Commander Zethka spoke up weakly, there must be some way to make amends. Some form of reparation. Commander, Thompson interrupted, let me tell you about human history, about something we call the Crusades. The holographic display changed, showing historical images from Earth's medieval period. 800 years ago, members of our species launched military campaigns that lasted for centuries. They crossed continents, fought impossible odds, and died in enormous numbers, all because they believed their most sacred places had been violated. The images shifted to show other historical conflicts. We fought a war that killed 50 million people because some of our leaders decided that certain groups of our own species were inferior. We split atoms and built weapons that could destroy entire cities because we were afraid that our enemies might do it first. She paused, letting the weight of human history settle over the communication. We are a species that has never, in our entire recorded history, responded proportionally to existential threats. When someone threatens what we consider sacred, we don't just push back. We eliminate the threat entirely. And our children, Admiral Kreshta said quietly, understanding beginning to dawn in her voice, are what you consider most sacred. More than sacred, Admiral. They're the future of our species. Every human child represents millions of years of evolution, thousands of years of civilization, and unlimited potential for what our species might become. Thompson turned back to Commander Zethka. You didn't just kill 3 individuals, Commander. In our minds, you tried to kill our future, and humans will burn down the galaxy before we let that happen. The tactical display chimed with an incoming priority message. Thompson accepted it, and the image of a human officer appeared.
Admiral Thompson, this is Captain Rodriguez of the research vessel Aurora. We've just received confirmation from Earth Command. The Reptilian Empire has formally surrendered unconditionally to human forces. All reptilian military assets are
to be immediately transferred to human control. The entire empire? Kreshta asked in disbelief. Yes, ma'am. Apparently, they decided it was better to surrender everything than to have their entire civilization destroyed. Thompson nodded grimly. Thank you, Captain. Admiral Thompson out. She turned back to the 2 alien commanders. There's your answer, gentlemen. Your empire chose survival over pride. Commander Zethka slumped further in his chair. What happens? To me now? That's not up to me, Commander. That's up to the families of the children you killed. The families? In human culture, Commander, justice for crimes against children isn't handled by governments or militaries. It's handled by the community. By the people who loved those children. Admiral Kreshta leaned forward in her transmission. Admiral. Thompson, surely you're not suggesting— I'm not suggesting anything, Admiral. I'm explaining how human justice works. Commander Zethka will be tried by a jury of human civilians, parents, teachers, people who understand what it means to protect children. They'll decide his fate, and if they decide on execution, Thompson's expression didn't change. Then he'll be executed. That seems harsh. Admiral, let me ask you something. In your species' history, has anyone ever attacked your children and been allowed to live? Kreshta was quiet for a long moment. No, she finally admitted. Child killers are executed immediately among my people. Then why should this be different? Before Kreshta could answer, new alarms began sounding on Thompson's bridge. But these weren't battle alarms, these were incoming ship alerts. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, massive hyperspace signatures detected, multiple fleets jumping in from all directions. The main tactical display shifted to show the space around Kepler 442b, and Thompson felt her blood run cold. Hundreds of alien ships were materializing out of hyperspace. Not human ships, but vessels from dozens of different species throughout the galaxy. Identification? Zephyrian Council ships, Velcarian Defense Force, crystalline collective vessels, gaseous. Entity containers? Ma'am, it looks like half the galaxy just showed up. Admiral Kreshta's image became urgent. Admiral Thompson, you need to stand down your forces immediately. I don't think so, Admiral. You don't understand. Those ships aren't here to fight. The humans. They're here to surrender to you. What? A new voice entered the communication as Grand Counselor Veltar's ancient face appeared on screen. Admiral Thompson, the elderly Zephyrian said, I speak for the Galactic Council and 47 member species. We wish to formally apologize for the actions of the Reptilian Empire and to assure you that such an incident will never happen again. Thompson stared at the alien leader in confusion. Counselor, I don't understand. Admiral, in the past 6 hours, your species has demonstrated something that has terrified every civilization in the galaxy. You mobilized 64,000 ships and conquered an entire interstellar empire in less than 1 day. You did this not for territory, not for resources, not for political advantage. You did it because someone killed your children, and you did it so efficiently, so completely, and with such overwhelming force that every species in the galaxy now understands something we should have realized long ago. Which is? Humans are not just another member species of the Galactic Council, Admiral. You are the apex predators of the galaxy. You have been holding back, being peaceful, following our rules and regulations, not because you had to, but because you chose to. The implications of his words settled over the bridge like a heavy blanket. The galaxy wants to make sure, Veltar continued, that humans continue to choose peace. To that end, we are prepared to offer significant concessions. What kind of concessions?
Full human administrative control over all child-related policies throughout Council space. Automatic human approval for any military action involving civilian populations. And immediate human membership on the Council's ruling committee. Thompson
looked around her bridge at her officers. Every face reflected the same mixture of shock and growing understanding. Counselor, she said carefully, are you offering to make humanity the de facto ruling species of the Galactic Council? Yes, Admiral, we are. Because we proved we could conquer the Reptilian Empire? No, Admiral, because you prove that you will destroy anyone who threatens your children, regardless of the cost to yourselves. Veltar leaned forward, his expression grave. Every species in this galaxy has children, Admiral, and now we all know that the humans will protect them as fiercely as they protect their own. That makes you not just our protectors, it makes you the guardians of the galaxy's future. Thompson was quiet for a long moment, processing the magnitude of what was being offered. Finally, she spoke. Counselor, I'll need to discuss this with Earth Command, but I have one condition. Name it. The first rule of galactic interaction gets an addition. Anyone who harms any child, human or alien, will face human justice. Agreed immediately. And Commander Zethka still faces trial for what he did here. Also agreed. Thompson nodded slowly. Then I think we can work something out, Counselor. As the various alien fleets began transmitting formal surrender documents and treaty proposals, Thompson turned to look at the tactical display showing the aftermath of the battle. Wreckage from reptilian ships drifted through space, and on the planet below, human colonists were beginning to emerge from shelters to survey their damaged but intact home. Her communications officer approached. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the colony school. Put it through. The screen filled with the image of a human woman in her 30s, surrounded by dozens of children of various ages. They all looked scared, but unharmed. Admiral Thompson, this is Sarah Martinez, principal of New Geneva Elementary School. I wanted to thank you and your fleet for everything. Are the children all right? They're scared, but they're safe. Thanks to you. One of the children, a girl who couldn't have been more than 7 years old, stepped forward. Admiral Thompson, my mommy says that people from all over space came to help us. Is that true? Thompson felt her throat tighten with emotion. Yes, sweetheart, that's true. Why? Because you're important. All children are important, And adults are supposed to protect you. Even adults we don't know. Especially adults you don't know. The little girl smiled, and Thompson realized that this moment, this simple exchange, with a child who would grow up never knowing how close she had come to living in a galaxy where humans were just another minor species, was worth more than all the treaties and surrenders and political arrangements that would follow. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported quietly, "Earth Command is requesting a full briefing on the new political situation." "Tell them we'll need to reschedule," Thompson replied, never taking her eyes off the children on the screen. "I have something more important to do first. Ma'am, I need to make sure every child in that colony knows that they're safe, and that they'll always be safe." Because that, Thompson realized, was what this had really been about. Not conquest or political power or galactic dominance. It was about making sure that children could sleep safely under alien stars, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, humans were watching over them. And now the entire galaxy knew it too. Epilogue: The New Rule, 5 years later. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation lounge of the research station, New Horizon, watching ships from 100 different species dock at the massive human-built facility orbiting Kepler 442b. The planet below had grown from a small colony to a thriving world, home to nearly 500,000 beings from dozens of different species. But what made New Geneva special wasn't its size or its diversity. It was what it represented. "Dr. Chen?" She turned to see a young Zephyrian student, no more than the equivalent of 12 human years old, approaching with a data pad in her hands. "Yes, Kira. I'm working on my report about the Battle of Kepler 442b, and I have a question." "What's your question?" "Why did the humans fight so hard for one colony? The historical records show they mobilized their entire civilian fleet and conquered an empire for just 300 children. That seems excessive." Dr. Chen smiled, remembering when she had asked Captain Rodriguez a similar question 5 years ago. "What do you think, Kira? Why would humans do something like that?" The young Zephyrian considered the question carefully. "Well, my parents always told me that children are the future of our species, but humans seem to take that more seriously than anyone else." "How so?" "They built this entire station just to make sure children from different species can learn together safely. They created the Galactic Child Protection Service. They even changed the basic laws of space travel to make sure no ship can carry weapons near any world with children on it." Dr. Chen nodded. "And what do you think that means?" "I think," Kira said slowly, "that humans understand something the rest of us forgot, which is that protecting children isn't just about protecting individuals. It's about protecting the future itself." Dr. Chen looked out at the ships docking at the station, crystalline collective vessels bringing young energy beings to study quantum physics, gaseous entity containers carrying young cloud minds to learn about atmospheric science, even former reptilian empire ships now flying under human protection, bringing their own children to a place where they could learn alongside the descendants of their former enemies. "You're right, Kira. And do you know what the most important part is?" "What?" "It worked." Veltar paused, his ancient eyes holding a mixture of fear and respect. Dr. Chen gestured to the bustling station around them. 5 years ago, most species in the galaxy saw each other as potential threats. Now look around. What do you see? Kira looked around the observation lounge, where children of a dozen different species were playing together, studying together, learning from each other without fear or suspicion. "I see the future," the young Zephyrian said quietly. "Exactly, and that's why humans fought so hard 5 years ago. Not for territory or resources or political power. For this. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the peaceful interactions between species that had once been enemies. "Dr. Chen?" "Yes?" "Do you think it will last?" "The peace, I mean." Dr. Chen considered the question. Through the viewport, she could see human patrol ships moving in regular patterns around the station, not as conquerors or occupiers, but as guardians. And on those ships, she knew, were not just human crew members, but beings from throughout the galaxy, all united by a single purpose: protecting the children. I think, she said finally, that as long as there are children in the galaxy, humans will be there to protect them. And as long as humans are protecting children, everyone else's children are safe too. Even from other humans? Dr. Chen thought about the question seriously. Kira, do you know what the punishment is for a human who harms any child? Human or alien? No. They face the same justice system that tried Commander Zethka, a jury of parents from across the galaxy. What happened to Commander Zethka? He was executed, Dr. Chen said simply. Not because he was an alien, but because he killed children. The jury was made up of beings from 6 different species, including 2 reptilians. And they all agreed on execution? Unanimously. Kira processed this information quietly. So humans don't just protect their own children. No, they protect all children. It's become part of who they are as a species. Is that why the Galactic Council made them the Guardians? Dr. Chen smiled. The official title was Protectors of Galactic Youth, but most beings simply called humans the Guardians. It fit. Yes. Because when you know someone will protect your children as fiercely as they protect their own, you trust them with everything else too. An announcement echoed through the station. Attention all residents and visitors. The evening meal will be served in Community Hall 7. Today's menu features traditional dishes from 15 different worlds, prepared by our interspecies culinary program. I should go, Kira said. My study group is meeting for dinner. What are you studying? Interspecies communication. We're trying to develop better translation protocols so that children from different species can understand each other more easily. That sounds important. It is. My teacher says that understanding each other is the first step to protecting each other. As the young Zephyrian headed off to join her mixed species study group, Dr. Chen remained at the viewport, watching the peaceful activity around the station. 5 years ago, she had been a physicist worried about accidentally creating black holes. Now she was the director of interspecies educational development for the Galactic Council, helping to raise the first generation of truly galactic citizens. And it had all started because some alien commander had made the mistake of threatening human children. She activated her personal communicator to check in with the other research stations throughout the galaxy. New Geneva was just one of hundreds now. Human-protected facilities where children from every known species could learn and grow together in safety. The reports were all positive. No incidents, no conflicts, no threats. Just children being children, regardless of whether they were made of flesh, energy, crystal, or gas. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message from Earth. It was a video message from her niece, a 10-year-old girl back on humanity's homeworld. Aunt Sarah, I hope you're having fun with all the alien kids. I wanted to tell you that I'm starting xenobiology classes next year, and I want to be a guardian like you when I grow up. Mom says guardians are the most important job in the galaxy, because we protect everyone's children. Is that true? Dr. Chen smiled and activated the reply function. Hi, Emma. Yes, that's true. Guardians protect all children everywhere, because every child is important. And you don't have to wait until you grow up to be a guardian. Every time you're kind to someone different from you, every time you help someone who needs it, every time you stand up for someone who can't stand up for themselves, you're already being a guardian. She paused, looking out at the station where hundreds of children from across the galaxy were learning, playing, and growing up together in peace. And Emma, the reason guardians are the most important job in the galaxy isn't because we're the strongest or the smartest. It's because we understand something very simple. Every child, no matter what species they are, deserves to feel safe. And when children feel safe, they can become anything they want to be. She sent the message and turned back to the viewport. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new species to integrate into the galactic community, new children to protect and nurture. But tonight, across hundreds of worlds and stations throughout the galaxy, millions of children of dozens of different species would go to sleep knowing they were safe. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, human ships would be patrolling, watching, guarding the future of the galaxy. Because some rules once established should never be broken, and the most important rule of all was simple: children are off limits. Always. The end.